Hey, welcome back to another episode of The Art of Making Things Happen, the podcast with me, Steve Sims. Have you thought about writing a book? Why? Now, I've got a gentleman on here that was the CEO of Keller Williams and many other real estate. He was top of the game within real estate, but something was bugging at him to write a book. And I asked him, why did you write the book? What were you hoping it was going to do for you? What were you hoping the outcome? Why even do it? What is the point? We get into his book, Dominant Thoughts, and I like the concept he has behind the book, but I really like this podcast because of the way he explains the trepidation, how he had to prepare, and the unnervousness to actually release his ideas out into the public. This episode's here about him, his book, how he went through it, but take those lessons, take those pain points for your benefit and apply them to what you do on a day-to-day basis. Listen to the podcast and enjoy. Hey, Chris, welcome to the show.
Steve, thanks for having me.
Now, we got a mutual friend. We should give him a shout out, Greg Reed. We've both been at his events and spoken at his events. So good old Greg. But I got introduced to you, and you've got a very well-defined and to a very high level background within the real estate industry. In fact, you were the CEO of Keller Williams. Was it Mellor Homes as well?
Yeah, so as CEO of those two organizations, since the age of 20, I got my real estate license at the age of 20. So I've been in the industry my whole adult life, leading real estate teams, brokerages, worldwide companies, and now I'm with a company called Ojo Labs, which is a company in the real estate industry that serves consumers and service providers. And then I'm on the board of several companies and advise several companies. So real estate's my thing.
So, and you got to a big level, it's not just a case of, hey, I was a really good broker. You were the CEO of these companies, of national brands, so and big recognizable groups. But then you decided to write a book that wasn't focused on the world of real estate, but more on mindset. I want to first of all ask, what was the journey for you to get to that point where you think, hey, I need to write the book? Because a lot of people get scared. So what was the thought process behind, I need to write this book?
So I've thought about writing a book for a long time, and I actually, over the years, started keeping different lists, like my rules for winning, my rules for living, and like lessons that I've learned. I was really fortunate throughout my career to have a lot of strong mentors. In two of the roles I had, I worked side by side daily with two different self-made billionaires, and those were unique opportunities. I was on a podcast similar to this about a year ago with our friend Greg Reed, who was me and Greg were two of the guests on the podcast. And near the end of it, excuse me, the host said, "Chris, when are you going to write a book?" I said, "I've thought about it, but I'd have to ask Greg how to do it because he's the master at writing books." So 2 days later, Greg calls me and said, "Hey, you mentioned you want to write a book?" He goes, "I can show you how to do it. I have the title, I have the URL. If you have the content, I have all the contacts, and I'll walk you through the process." And that was a tremendous offer, to be mentored, in writing a book, which is sort of ironic because the book is about a mentor and a mentee, and the lessons that get taught along the way. So it was really fortunate that I'd met Greg, and he was willing to take on this project with me and sort of show me how to do it.
Was it scary?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've never been asked that. There was a little bit of that, and probably for a couple of reasons. Number one, it was completely unknown, right? I've never done it before. That in itself wasn't so scary because I knew I'd figure it out, and I had someone in my corner to help me. But then also, someone like Greg, who's had a lot of success doing it, there was, I think, some extra pressure. I don't know if it was fear, as maybe more pressure of, hey, okay, I want this to be good. And there were many times when I would call him and say, "Hey, will you read this chapter? I don't think this is like strong enough or impactful enough." And he'd call me back and say, "Hey, this is awesome." He goes, "Look, it's stuff so it's not it's not blowing the lid off your head, but for other people, this is going to be really impactful stuff." So.
Yeah, I had someone say to me that writing a book is akin to walking down the high street naked. It's just totally revealing. Everything's out there. You're giving it all your best, and you're just praying that it helps and impacts somebody. So I've
Yeah.
heard that many different things. But you're right. Getting someone that actually knows the ropes makes it easier for you, but also does make it a little bit. You get a bit apprehensive because you don't almost want to look silly in front of someone else that for them is their normality.
Yeah. Fortunately, I don't, I've never been shy about asking questions, asking for help. In fact, I probably lean into that more than most. So if anything, Greg had to deal with a lot of questions or a lot of repetitive type questions. But it was, I view it as it was just I was fortunate to have someone like him along for the ride that I could ask those questions to, because otherwise, I would have been trying to figure out a lot of things on my own or making my own judgments, and some of them probably wouldn't have been the right ones.
All right. So look, you've got someone to write the book with. You've got someone to mentor you and guide you through the steps. We still haven't answered the first thing. Why did you feel what you had to say was worth somebody else listening to?
There's two answers to that question. One is, when I look back on my career, there were some books that I read early on that to this day have had an impact on me. And they were this type of book. They were short stories, business parables, like The Richest Man in Babylon, or Og Mandino's The Greatest Salesman in the World. And I read those books in my early 20s, and they really had a strong impact on me. So, there's things that I've learned and I've done, and when I slow down to take a look at them or to look in the mirror or acknowledge them, which is very uncomfortable for me to do, it's like, okay, yeah, I've done some things out of the ordinary. And so there's lessons that I've learned that if someone had given me those when I was young, I would have been very grateful for. So that was one reason. I just wanted to be able to put it out there to help anyone. And like you said a few minutes ago, Steve, if one person goes, wow, this really is impactful, or this really helped me, or this really changed my thinking, then it's worth it. The second reason, and more of a sort of, I'll call it a behind the scenes reason, was I have 4 kids. My kids are between the ages of 21 and 31. And I had gone through a divorce that took a toll on everyone, and including my kids. And over the years, I have a phenomenal relationship with the kids now. But there was a time when I didn't, and that time was a pretty important time in their development that I didn't get to play a role in, or didn't have the opportunity that I'd like to have shared some of my knowledge. When your kids get older, things coming from dad just sometimes aren't well received or listened to or heard. So my thought was, okay, if it's in a book and some of their friends read the book and they hear people going, wow, this was really good, that it may get into them, it may get into their hands, it may get into their heads.
I'm amazed. I know a lot of authors, and I'm amazed at how many people actually do write books to be able to put their emotions out there to impact people, but also to lay it out there for their young. Because let's be serious, when you're young, your dad's your dad. I don't know anybody, and I know some very famous people and very successful people, and I don't know one of those where the kids are impressed with their dads. They're just dad. Now, here's the daft thing. You can drop those kids off to school and they can have mates there that want your autograph,
Yeah.
and in awe of you, but it's never to your kids, your dad. So I've heard a lot of times that people have actually wanted to release a book for that. It's also worth saying how funny it is, and I want to dispel a myth here. So many people are focused on technology. What's the new thing? What's the new thing? What's the new thing? Books have never advanced.
Yeah.
They've gone to Kindle, they've gone to, audio book, but the book itself has never advanced. It's the front and the back, and it's the copy in the middle. And people still love it. It's a great escape. And most people somewhere in the house have books. I don't know anybody that's gone, no, I'm only Kindle, because there is something, I don't know if it's reassuring of kind of like being able to look at where that bookmark is and go, I'm halfway through that story. I'm halfway through that journey, and just being able to hold it up, that complete engagement. So if anyone's out there thinking books are old school, you're damn right they are, but they're here to stay for a good few more years. So what is the book? And this is something that Jay Abraham said to me. Jay Abraham said, when I released Bluefishing, he said, are you ready for what the book's going to do to and for you? And I remember when he said that, I was like, yeah, of course I'm ready. Of course I wasn't. But he's done so many books that, he realizes that it's like you unleashing a dinosaur out into the park. You may have control of it for 5 seconds, but once it's gone, it's everybody's interpretation of what you said that's important. What has the book done for you and to you?
Well, it's interesting to think about that. Unlike, I think, a lot of authors, I didn't have a specific goal for the book. Like, it wasn't a means to a specific end. I wanted to do it. I wanted the experience of doing it. I wanted to get it out there to make it a difference for people. And I really consciously said, okay, and then I'm just going to let it go where it goes. And it's still in the early stages. It's been out 60 days or so. But one of the things it's done is when I hear people, I was at an event in Seattle yesterday, and spoke about mindset and spoke about some of the lessons in the book. And there were some people that already read the book, and to hear them share, how it's already helped them, or how they're thinking about things differently, or they're approaching things differently, or the ahas that they had. That's it's not validation. It's more confirmation that, hey, you were right. There is some value here. And that's a really cool feeling. I mean, that's being able to make a difference for someone is, I don't know if it gets any better than that.
It's a good feeling, but the trouble is you're only aware of it after you've released the book. You could, if you released a book and you put all your best stuff in it. I remember talking to, and actually it was through Greg Reed. I was talking to the 90s rapper Coolio. Now, he's famous for Gangster's Paradise, right? That was his big hit. And he said that you can't control what somebody else loves and likes. And he mentioned this tune, and he was like, have you ever heard of that? And we were like, no, never have it. This was the best thing I have ever done. No one bought it. He said, I loved it. It felt right. It was me. I put it out there. Crickets. Yeah. All of a sudden, Gangster's Paradise everywhere. Sing Gangster's Paradise. They all want that. So you only have a certain amount of control and hope. But when you put it out there, it's really on how it's received rather than how you wrote it.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier, like the scary part, that if there was a scary part, that was it. Like, okay, it's done. It's out there, or it's coming out. Will anyone like it? Like, will anyone, or will they go, gosh, Chris, that was weak, or it's like having it's planning a big party or a big event, and a few things about those, and wondering if everyone's going to show up or if anyone's going to show up. And that was sort of the feeling when it first came out. It was like, okay, now we'll see.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for answering those questions and being very vulnerable as an author to show what it goes through. There's a lot of people out there that go, hey, I want to write a book. A lot of them need to question themselves why, because a lot of people, the worst reason to write a book, and again, I'll repeat the brilliant Jay Abraham, a book will never get you a house on the beach. What the book does for you will get you the house on the beach, but it'll never directly be the actual book. Someone once said to me that there's never been a millionaire author. And the first thing you do is you turn around and go, no, J.K. Rowling, look at her. She's a multi-millionaire. She's rich as hell from her books. No, she's as rich as hell from her movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Got to understand that. So if you're looking to release a book because you want to make a fortune, dumbass, that ain't going to work. So thank you very much for being open to that. But I do encourage, if you're looking at writing a book, many different ways of doing it. We can help. Greg does stuff. He's very competent at it. Jay, a lot of different avenues. But first of all, identify what is the point. Now, we've spoken about all the trepidation and what you did and how you decided to do it and the fear and the excitement and the acknowledgement. Let's focus on the book. Now, what's the name of the book?
The book is called Dominant Thoughts, and the website's dominantthoughts.com.
All right.
The subtitle is Things Grow Where Our Minds Go. And it really is about the power. Like, I went from a sophomore in college, getting my real estate license, to ultimately becoming the #1 agent in the country. And I didn't have any special skills. I didn't have any special talent. I wasn't smarter. Didn't have a better personality or more charismatic, or in fact, I was definitely deficient in most of those areas. But I did one thing at a really high level, and that was develop the mindset and discipline around mindset in certain areas that helped me go much farther and faster than most people in the industry. And that's really what's a lot of what's in the book, is the power of mindset. Now, we hear that a lot, right? It's that's not a new topic or a new concept, but there's some real specific things. I'll give you an example of one. Not being attached to the outcome. There's the concept of being committed versus being attached. In sales, especially, and many things in life and relationships, sometimes people get attached. They get emotionally involved. They feel it in their gut. If it doesn't happen, it hurts them. It crushes them. That's not a powerful place to operate from. In a negotiation standpoint, if you're trying to buy something and you're very attached to it, you're going to end up paying more than you should or more than you wanted to. If you're committed to get it, then you're going to be more objective. You're going to take more of a business-like approach. So that's something that I early on got really good at and developed that strong commitment. If I was helping you as a client, I was committed that you'd have the best experience and accomplish your goals and everything else. But I wasn't going to let myself get attached to the outcome, because that was, quite frankly, it was too hurtful and too painful, right? Every time, it'd be like a doctor. I think about it, an emergency room physician, if he was attached to every single patient that came through and the outcome of every patient, boy, that doctor would jump off a building in 2 weeks, probably. They'd flame out. But they're committed to helping everyone. So helping people understand the difference between commitment and attachment is something that can really help people become more effective, and also not being taken out of the game for extended periods of time. Like, we've all had, and I remember hearing you speak, and you shared about some of your challenges or failures or things that happen. We've all had those, and it's not a question of whether we're going to have them or how many we're going to happen. It's how are we impacted by them? How do we recover, and what do we learn, and how do we move forward? And that's where not being attached helps you do that at a much higher level.
How did you learn that lesson?
A lot of it was experiencing things and saying, I don't want to experience that again. So I just thought that was bad. I don't want to do that. So in real estate, when you're helping people buy and sell homes, it's very emotional. Like, it's an emotional process. There's not a whole lot of logic involved with people's decisions to buy and sell homes. And I knew that I had to be the calming factor in the equation, right? If I was very emotional, I'd be like adding gasoline to a fire. So when things would happen, and sometimes bad things would happen, right? The deal would fall apart at the 9th hour, or the escrow would cancel, or the buyer would miss out on something, or a mistake was made, which costs tens of thousands of dollars. I would watch other agents when they went through that, and they would literally be wrecked for days, sometimes weeks. And I couldn't afford to have that happen. So I actually created a rule that I called my 3-minute rule. So I had 3 minutes to be pissed off, to be mad, to be sad, to throw something, to yell, to do whatever. But after 3 minutes, it was, I had to be ready to go again. I always thought about professional athletes, like professional baseball players. They go up to bat with the intention to get a hit. If they strike out, which is not the outcome they want, if they get wrecked by that, and the next time they go up to bat, they're thinking about what happened last time and they struck out and they don't want to do that, they're not going to have a good, likely a good outcome from the next at bat. So I tried to develop that same sort of mindset with everything I did. Obviously have empathy and compassion for my clients, but not let it affect me so much that I couldn't help all my other clients or be able to best help that client.
I love the fact that you said you didn't want to have that experience again. And that's experience in itself, understanding what you don't like, that makes you've gained experience on what didn't work, what didn't feel good, which wasn't right. So I like that fact that you recognize what experience you didn't want to repeat. That's a great way of telling us what education is. So you're out there now on the road actually teaching this, and the book itself's got nothing to do with real estate whatsoever. It's all on thought and mindset. So when you wrote the book's actually in parable fashion. Is that correct, you were saying?
Yes.
Why did you do it in that format?
Really because of some of the books that I read when I was young that were written in that fashion that really had a profound impact on me. I didn't want to write a sort of a textbook on mind thoughts and, each chapter, okay, here's the topic and here's the things, and just, droning that into the reader. It's much easier. I think it's much easier to absorb lessons when it's done in the form of a story with real life examples. That it makes it just an easier read.
So you've created a journey for the person who's reading the book.
Yeah, that's a better way to say what I just said. Yes.
Hey, look, I only learned it from the people I hang around with. Everything I do, I repeat other people smarter than me. Makes me look good.
Yeah.
So what's next on the horizon? The book's come out. It's only been out for about 60 days. You said before that people are buying it in blocks for their groups and for their teams. So it's obviously resonating with people. Where do you see, and this is a test, this is one of those things where we can go forward in 2 years and go, was he right? In 2 years' time, what are you doing that maybe this book was the first domino towards you getting there?
Yeah, so there's business-wise, there's a lot of big things that I'm working on with the company I'm involved with, and where we may go and how we may get there. The book is and someone told me this a long time ago, that when you have a book, it's like a calling card at a different level, or a door opener at a different level than what you may have in other things. And so it just gives me one more avenue to be able to, whether it's communicating with someone about it or something that gets me in front of people that I normally wouldn't be getting in front of. And I think, 2 years from now, Steve, I am, I have a strong desire to do more, and I'm nowhere near, and maybe never will be near, slowing down or taking it easy. I think 2 years from now, with this book, or without the book, but certainly with the book to a higher degree, I think there'll be more opportunities that I may not even realize yet, that'll come about. And the more that it gets out there, the more people that read it, the more people that hear about it, that you never know what connections come from those and what opportunities are. The key, I think, for all of us is to be open to those, be aware and watchful, and then being able to take advantage of them when they happen.
Where can people grab your book?
Hey, you can go to our website, dominantthoughts.com, or go to Amazon. It's in Kindle, Audible, hardback, paperback, whatever format you want.
Perfect. Chris, it's been a pleasure to spend some time with you. Thank you so much for sharing not only what the book is, but what it took you to get to it. And I wish you all the best. And hey, let's see what you get up to in 2 years' time.
We'll come back and talk in a couple of years.
Look out for yourself, Chris. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Steve.
Hey, I hope you liked that episode of the Art of Making Things Happen podcast. And remember, these are done for you. If you like them, subscribe, share them around. But if you don't like them, send me an email to ask@steveDsims.com and you can tell me what I need to do to make this the most dynamic podcast you listen to. Anyway, make sure whatever you learned from the last podcast, you actually do something with. Without action, it's just a bunch of people blowing air. Have a good time. Until next time. Bye.